that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Crippled God Thoughts, Part 2. Now, you may think this is the end. However, it is not. Because in most of my videos, excluding the first two, because they were live streams, and then the fifth one, I've done two-parters for books, for Prologue 1 and 2, and then the second video will be 3, 4, and Epilogue. This had 7 books and 2 epilogues. So, we're discussing books 4 to 6. And the finale would be book 7, 2 epilogues, and my overall thoughts on the series as a whole. But for today, we have books 4 through 6. Again, I'm still haven't completed the story, right? Like, I don't know the exact endgame yet at this point in my thoughts. So I can't exactly tell you how it ends or how that feels. I will say that there's a lot of the soldiering stuff that, for me, I'm not super invested in. You know, it's a lot of questioning Tavor. I understand why that's important to the overall narrative in terms of the mystery of Tavor, and along with how her soldiers are feeling dissatisfaction from her leadership. But I just don't care. You know, I feel like at this point in the story we should be wrapping up, not prolonging the end. You know, if that makes sense. Like, we're still getting, not really at this point, but like at the beginning of this book we were getting introduced to even new characters. And to me it's really frustrating. And I get it, it's like, it's Steven Erickson's work, he can do whatever he pleases, but I'm in the final book of a 10-book series, most of which were over 1,000 pages long. I don't care about your new characters. I don't. Maybe that says more about my heartlessness, but I don't care. I care about the people that you've introduced me to for the past 8 books. That's who I want to see. That's who I want to follow. That's who I want to know their conclusions to, because they're the ones that got me invested into the entire point of the story in the first place. So it gets rather frustrating at times. That being said, we're all heading towards something, and it seems really good, and there's a lot of good moments in here. Also part of this section is just a huge focus on Carcanis, and this big battle going on between the Leosin Tisti and the Tistiandi, or the shock of the shake or whatever, that they aren't completely Tistiandi. It's a bit weird. And Amanda comes back and all this stuff, and that's like near the end. That's what's more fresh in my mind. But and it's interesting and it's cool, but I also don't see what relevance it plays to the plot line of this book. And maybe that's not the point. Maybe it's just the themes and feelings are meant to be invoked, but I just, you know, like, when you get to licensed fiction, like if you go to Star Wars Expanded Universe, right, and they did the New Jedi Order, which was a 19-book series with multiple different authors reaching a conclusion, right, and I had issues with that series a lot. But when you get to Unifying Force, which is the final book of the 19, it feels ramped up. You know, it just takes you on a roller coaster, and that's your conclusion. Now, that's not exactly what Steven Erickson may have wanted to do here, which is fine, but it feels really slow. And, you know, everybody's telling me that the finale really shows you what's up. Really, it's a great finale, really, truly. And I haven't finished it, but so far, with what I've read, I haven't exactly gotten the hype Maybe it's this book 7 and 2 epilogues that really get your heart turning. But nothing is really, because this book is still phenomenal. You know, this is all my non-spoiler thoughts. I mean, this book is still great. It's some of the best writing I've ever encountered. But it's nothing greater than what's come before in Malazan. So I don't understand where the praises are coming in as of yet. I'm gonna get into some spoilers now, but overall, I mean, I'm enjoying the series, but I'm not, or this finale, but I'm not really in love with it or anything. But I'm curious to see how it all concludes. I enjoy all the little character moments. You know, I enjoy the multiple different POVs and different stories going on. But, you know, I know it's always about the journey, not the destination. With Erickson. But, you know, I just it's hard sometimes to be completely invested in some of the things that are going on in this book. You know, like Gano's parents like barely in the story, and you know, he was the introduction to this world was through him. So I was hoping to see a little bit more of him in the 10th book, but he's not really there. I've also been spoiled on the fact that Karsa doesn't matter. So then why did I waste my time reading about him? He went from a character I loved to a character I absolutely adore, and he doesn't even matter. Now I know there's a sequel trilogy that's being written, but that doesn't matter. That's not this one. So even if this story concludes amazing, you set up this character to be super important and then just left him out. Or actually the most aggravating thing about this entire book so far, the thing that actually like legitimately like pisses me off, there's this part with Silch's Ruin and Tula Shorn where he goes, ugh, and it's emotionally like it's impactful. They're like good friends or whatever. But he's like, no, I can't tell you this secret. No, no, because Animandarake, it's his secret. And if I tell his secret, then the entire world could like implode. Like, I can't tell you this secret of his. You know why that pisses me off? Because I know for a fucking fact, apologize for cussing, that Steven Erickson is not going to give me an answer in this book. It is all entirely just there because, and at the time of writing this book, the Carcarnis trilogy didn't exist. But it's basically a big tease for something that did not exist. Now it does exist. But it's all just been like, so in my head it's just like, oh, promotion for this. Even though I know it's not because it didn't even come out yet. It's actually worse back when this was released because there was no answer. But I know it's not going to be resolved here. I mean, unless it matters to the end plot, which maybe, but it really feels like something that's just there. And look, the Tissy Andy stuff is super interesting, but that's far in the fucking past. Let's deal with right now. That's a big problem of mine. And also part of this book, though, is like the super past stuff still mattering. Like that's part of the point, but it's just frustrating because it's like, okay, but the stuff that we're investing in now, can we get to that? If you want to talk about the prequel stuff and stuff that's been going on with Animander, then you can go write that trilogy and let us know. Don't tease it here. You know, like it just seems like a waste of time. And you know, if I had read this back in 2011, which no way, I was 10, I would have killed myself. But there would be no conclusion here. So, yeah, sorry, there's a little bit of a frustration I've had with that. But I am enjoying my time despite what that sounds like. People have really hyped this up as like the greatest grand finale, and so far it just feels like more of the same, which is great, but not phenomenal. I mean, everything of Steven Erickson is phenomenal, but it's not like anything greater than what's come before, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm getting spoilers. If you don't want that, time to bail. So, we have book 4, The Fists of the World. And we have many suspicions of Dvor's motivations. Fiddler has this great part about the future and the Book of the Fallen, which was a fun thing there. Sandalith, who's now become like the queen of Carconis, wants nothing to do with Carconis. There's a war chief, Spax of the Gilk, who talks to Hood, and Hood is now with like the Shurgalale group, I think, unless I'm misremembering. But that's a whole thing going on. That's all I wrote down for book 4. Sorry. Then I move on to book 5, A Hand Upon the Fates. Silchus is sorry about what he did to Kettle, because ultimately it was meaningless. So, we also got a Calor flashback about, I think, his wife killing herself and him blaming other people for how mean they were to her, which was interesting because it was a sort of more sympathetic look on Calor. And then I just wrote down I don't care about the Leosin battle. Because there's a huge chunk of this book that's dedicated to the Leosins, who Steven Erickson so far has yet to actually properly, like, dive into who they are as a people. Like, we've gotten a whole book about the Eater, and through Animander Rake and Namander, we've gotten plenty about the Tistiandi. But as for the Leosin, I mean, we had Lorik, who was fighting the Shock army, but we really know nothing about them. So that's also like, why do I give it? They're pure white, that's the only difference. Why do I care? But yeah, they're fighting the Sheikh and Sandalith. You know, like constant battles, and the battles are cool. They're actually probably the easiest to follow in this whole series for me, just because it's pretty mundane. It's just kind of sword on sword, fighting. And it's not like a huge infantry where it's like a bunch of different things you gotta keep track of. It's just like the battle. But I just don't care. Like, I wish I did, but I don't care. Maybe on a reread I really will care. Maybe if I ever read the Carconis trilogy, I'm like, oh my god. But also I feel like part of people's love with this series comes from a reread. Because there's so much left out. Oh, might I remind you all that if you were reading this, as most fans tell you you have to read it, which is just these 10 books first, let me tell you that they spend a paragraph. That's it. Blink and you'll miss it. That Lacine is dead, and that Malik Ral has taken over the Empire. Well, that's... Okay, thanks. Not only is it not relevant now, but what a big revelation. The drop at the last second. You know? Luckily, I didn't listen to other people, and I read Return of the Crimson Guard in between a few books, and then Stonewielder. Stonewielder and Nord Scepter Throne don't matter as much to that plot point, but I knew that Lacine had died, which is a very important thing to know, I feel. But Erickson, like, expects you to, like, go read his friend's book, so that you'll know that. And if you don't know that, then here's a quick little mention. But it doesn't really... And he'll do that a lot, with either plot points or characters entirely. Oh, Ansie's hanging out the Segula? When did that happen? Well, you should have read Orb Scepter Throne. I mean, that book may not have even been out yet. I don't know. But still, the point still stands that I'm sure he was talking to Esselmon about his plot point and just sprinkle that in there, you know? But, like, you're going to be reading and be like, when and how doesn't matter because you don't get to know, you know? And I think it's rather frustrating. Now, I've read it, so it doesn't bother me as much because I know the context. But if somebody was listening to other fans who said, oh, just read the 10 books, you have a bunch of things that have no explanation. You're just like, okay. Or you get a quick paragraph explanation, like, wait, what? But it's just, you know, I'm not saying it's a flaw. I like the interconnectivity between the two, even if it's not super important to it overall. But it's just like, it would not be the smoothest read if you just read Erickson, you know? So, you know, at least do a publication order, because Return of the Crimson Guard would come out way before the Crippled God. You need that information. So if you're not going to take my advice or do it how I release these videos, then at least do it in publication order, because it is essential that you know that beforehand, in my opinion. So, anyway. There's this idea that if Kroll dies, then magic itself will die. I don't know if that's exactly true, but we have Kilomandros and Orestes talking about that. Oh, then I wrote down Tulashorn and Silch's kind of crap talking one another, which was really fun. And then that's where he goes into the, this big secret of Animander. I won't tell you. I won't tell anyone, but there's this big secret. Crappie gives Torrent arrows and wants to help his daughters. So at least we know that Crappie got a little cameo in this book and that he's in fact a good dad. Gruntle promises to kill Kalara's son. Also, something that in hindsight makes those scenes from Dust of Dreams better. The kids from Dust of Dreams are in Ikarim's city, or his other name, I guess, Icarus. Don't fly too close to the sun. That's a Greek reference. Eretus, his real enemy, is Ganos Perrin, which is really cool because there's this scene with Ganos being like just super cool, and it was great. Well, that might be book 6, I don't remember. And then we have book 6. No, it isn't book 6, I'm sorry. We have book 6, To One in Chains. Calum's back. We've had Quickbend cheat and save Calum, which was meant to not be possible, but it's been what, since the Bone Hunters? Good to see you again, Calum. There's a Temper and Shadow Throne scene. Now again, if you don't know, in Knight of Knives, that first book by Esselmont, which was a prequel, Temper was the main character. Now, Steven Erickson has this habit of introducing new characters left and right, even as late as this book, so you don't need to have read that. You know, you could just be like, oh, look at Steven Erickson introducing yet another character out of the blue. However, if you are in the know, then that's going to matter a lot more to you, because you will remember Temper from Knight of Knives. So it is a cool thing that Steven Erickson and Esselmont like to do. And that one I'm fine with. You know, like, you don't need to know his entire life story in order to enjoy that scene, as opposed to other scenes I feel like it's like a little confusing. But that works perfectly fine. But it does do what, you know, like an expansive universe should do, where the works complement each other. Like, you can get the point of the scene just fine across if you don't have the context. But if you have that context, then that scene stands out a lot more. Sister Belai of the Forgroll Soul has a conversation with Ganos Perrin, and Ganos Perrin's, you know, just keeps saying like how he's lesser and I'm gonna kill all of you, and he's like, that's cute. It's funny you think that. It's such good energy. I love it. Antsy and Segula are hanging out. Oh, you want that explanation? Well, go read Orb Scepter's Throne then, by Ian C. Esselmont. But yeah, they just casually mentioned that Antsy's hanging out with some Segula. Hood explains partially the long game that the key figures have been playing for a long time now. Which, you know, it's kind of like there's been a lot of hands and a lot of plates, and a lot of characters that you thought were like opposed to one another are actually not opposed to one another. Game of Thrones on a cosmic scale, basically. It's so crazy that we are getting stuff like this so late in the game, but we learn about the Forgroll Sail versus the Kachane Shamel's history, and how the Assail thought that they were better than the ones that helped form them, and so they killed their god. Which all that remains of their deceased god is the glass shards, the glass desert that all of our characters are going through. So again, the ancient past affecting the present. Then we have Gruntle as a tiger, Kalava as a dragon, fighting to the death. And Gruntle does manage to kill Kalava, but so does she manage to kill him, and his last thoughts are of Stony. Rather sad, and feeling rather pointless. So I don't know exactly why we had this entire plot thread. But yeah, it was sad to see him go. Will it stick? Because a lot of characters come back in this series. I guess we'll have to wait to find out. Withel talks to Sandalith about fighting with her soldiers instead of being behind the scenes. And she does not want to see any more death. And he says you should be willing to fight amongst your men, you know. All the sacrifices that they're making, you should at least be able to get bloody with them. And I understand both sides, but it's a lot for Sandalith. It's more than just no. You know, there's a lot of baggage that comes with that refutation. Nymander promises to fight. Nymander is also mistaken for his father and tells Sandalith to stand down. Blistig is having a temper tantrum and kills Por, which is another Malazan soldier, and then also, or Bone Earner, sorry, and then tells, you know, everyone that they're stupid for falling to Vor. And that's like the last big thing that kind of like goes down. But yeah, we're ramping to the finale. Like I said, so far, just from these two parts, that's 4, I'm stupid. From these 2 parts, I'm enjoying it. I have my issues, as I always do, but I'm enjoying the ride still. I am absolutely curious to see how it all concludes, and we'll find that out next week. So, anyway guys, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Please leave comments telling me why I'm stupid and dumb, or just help me understand things. Although, by the time you watch this, I've probably already read the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy, or the sequel book, and the Ian Salesman prequel books, and I'll have everything in my mind by the time you watch it anyway, but, you know, just for the sake of it. But yeah, I'm loving the ride. I have my gripes, I have my complaints, but no matter what, I have never read anything quite like this, and it's honestly one of the best things I've ever read. All these books. It is an experience that I'll never exactly have again. I'm curious on a reread, which won't happen for a long time because I've got 1,000 other things I need to read. But I think I'm going to appreciate everything a lot more on the second read through. But these are just my raw thoughts, exploring it for the first time. But anyway, it's my day off. I'm going to go finish this book and come back to you. Till then, don't turn into a tiger and kill me, please. Let's be friends. Alright, till next time.